We've used a lot of different methods of connecting the 80-20 in the van. Probably my favorite, and the one I use the most, is an end tap. That's because it's mostly hidden. But I do have to pull this section apart. The back of this panel needs to be painted. And I need to connect the bottom of these two legs through the floor of the van. So I'll pull this section apart and I'll show you how each of the different sections is connected. And this, this piece, this whole section is like a puzzle. It can only go together one way. Each piece kind of holds the next piece in place. So as I pull it apart, I'll show you how things are held together. The first part that I have to take apart in this assembly is the Lagun table. Those of you that are familiar with the Lagun table know that there's just a pin and socket joint here, and they can be tightened with these two handles. I think we've got them fairly loose and I'll be able to just pop them up. Before I do that, I want to show you the two locations, how this Lagun table is going to pivot. I'll just stand up to do that. Right now, the top of the Lagun table is actually just one of my Home Depot cabinet door fronts that is actually purchased for a section of the kitchen countertop, which we may or may not use. Right now, it is in the bathroom area. Gail built this little cushion that sits on top of the toilet. That's the shower base, and it's pivoted right behind the driver's seat. But we also have this double bench seat area, and the Lagun table can swing all the way around to be used in that area, and in its halfway position it can be used in this area by the kitchen. I'll see if I can do that with one hand. Everything's just sitting here, so in this position it can be used as additional landing area for the kitchen, and as it pivots around it can be used by the people sitting in the passenger seat bench. We also have built this little ledge that works for your feet because it's a little high from the seat all the way down to the floor. So the first thing I have to do is take the Lagun table apart, and then we'll pick the video up again here. So this is the Lagun table base. You can actually get different lengths of this. This is the standard one that came with it. And we've positioned that in such a location that when the driver's seat is back, the armrest just misses the Lagun mount. This is the driver's seat in its backmost position, still sitting in a sitting position, and these two just miss each other here. When you fully recline the driver's seat, we had to be careful that this armrest missed the base of the Lagun support. So now I'll pull off this Lagun support here. That would be, that would be the lowest position that the Lagun table can go in, and the highest would be up here somewhere. So this is the base plate that came with the Lagun table. We have it connected with 80-20 screws and 80-20 T-nuts behind this piece. There's a secondary piece that goes in here and is actually connected to this horizontal piece, which is connected to the seat base. But I'll get to that. I'll show you all those connections. For now, I'm going to pull off this top plate that I made, which just kind of covers up the exposed ends of the 80-20, and then this plate, I'll loosen these screws off and this can come straight up. So I've just taken this finishing plate off the top, which exposed, it was held on by threading the end of the 80-20 and just using the 80-20 screws to hold it in place. So this is one of the last of the T-nuts. So if I loosen that off, that plate will just lift right off. And on the back it's got 4 T-nuts that just go into those 2 slides. So this piece is just held on to this horizontal, which has a actually a 5/16 inch and a half carriage bolt that goes through into the base. So as things loosen up, I'll be able to slide that whole assembly back this way. I did need a 1/4 inch spacer that is just another little piece of 80/20. It'll become more apparent as this slides back, which I think I can do right now. So you can see there's a little 1/4 inch spacer, and the way this is held on is there's a 80/20 nut in this groove and an 80/20 T-nut in this groove, and there's a clearance hole here. So I can use the Allen key to tighten that bolt to that T-nut, and that holds in as an assembly. This is going to connect to this horizontal bar with one of these 80/20 hidden connectors. The next step in removing this assembly, and what we're trying to do is get to this panel here, is to loosen or to remove this screw, which goes into a riv nut. This is just a 5/16 1 inch, I believe, stainless steel bolt that I got with my 80/20 purchase. And the next part would be releasing the screws that go through here into the end tap of these two pieces of aluminum, and they're accessible through a clearance hole that's in. So I can only loosen these off because they will bottom out against this piece of aluminum. So there's one here, and there's another one that's a little harder to reach down here, so I'll do that off camera. I just remembered that before I can release this Allen nut or bolt, there's a bolt that goes through this way into this piece of aluminum, and it needs to be it's in the way of the accessing the other bolt, so I have to remove this one first. So with this bolt removed, I now have access to the head of the Allen bolt going this way and this way. They can be released. This needs to move away from these two pieces to unhook from the shower base. So I'll show you that in a second. But before I can do that, I have to release this so that it has room to go that way. So with that released, I can loosen, release this. So as I release this post should pull away. Now, with it being that far away, this whole assembly, this piece, and the two legs should lift straight up. Maybe. We're still hooked on something. There we go. So it'll come up, and as you see, there's a little notch cut in the 80/20 here, and that lips over top of the shower base top. So if you look here, you can see these are the two Allen nuts or bolts that I've been tightening or loosening through that upright. And so this piece can be removed after that bolt that goes into a riv nut is removed. So I'll do that first. I've removed the bolt that was at this end, and this piece can now be slid straight out this way. It fits underneath that little piece of plastic, so it just has to be released from that, and then it can slide right out. It's in this case, it's bringing the panel with it, but I'll separate the two. we did a little bit of creative rabbiting with this piece of arborated wood. It is rabbited into this upright here, it's rabbited along the top here, and then we actually rabbited around this B-pillar. So as I pull it back, you'll get to see that there was some stuff we wanted to cover up, and we just rabbited the back of the piece of wood. So then this last bar is actually just sitting there, but it laps over the top edge of the shower base. I don't know if you can see that. A little bit there, but I'll pull it off and it'll be more apparent. So there's this lip here that fits into the groove and up. And then the last piece is the same. This piece is rabbited. It's sitting on the same groove, and it's got a through bolt that comes in from this end. And I'll probably remove that as well. I've just placed this lagoon support and footrest piece back in place for a second because I want to show you. I've previously marked where the bases are, and I'm going to try to fasten them through the floor to the van itself. This is a neat little rubber stair tread piece that I'm going to buy another piece that goes all the way across, because this bar is going to be used as a footrest when you're sitting in the bench seats. And it's a neat little piece that just snaps into the top of the 80/20. We used this on the bed to keep the movable section from sliding around and bouncing while in transit. This is where one of those little legs is going to go, and I want to find out where it's going to come through at the bottom of the van. There is a major framing member back here, but I think I'm going to be beside it. So I'm going to take this little piece is just representing where the leg is going to go. I'm going to take this drill bit and do an exploratory hole straight through, and the piece will help keep me square to the van floor. So we'll do that next. This represents where the leg for the footstool is going to go, and I'm just using it to keep my drill bit square as I drill through. I've made this same connection detail a number of times in the van. This floor is a wooden floor sitting on a thin piece of plywood, which sits on an inch of foam, and that sits on the original plastic van floor. So I want to transfer the weight down to the metal floor. So I drill a clearance hole, and then I put in a piece of aluminum that comes right up to the top of the van floor. And when I bolt through it, it transfers the weight from the 80/20 through the piece of aluminum down into the van floor. So I will drill that clearance hole now. So I've just got a hole saw, and I use the same hole. So that's gone through the wooden van floor, the plywood subfloor, and into the foam. So I have to clean out my bit, and then we'll pick that up again. I just switch out the receiver for my hole saw because the old one wouldn't fit inside this hole as I continue to drill down. So now I've gone through the foam piece, and I just think I've just hit the plastic van floor. You have to be a little bit careful because I don't want to scratch up the paint too much on the van floor. It's inevitable that I hit it, and I do seal it with a new paint. Just dig that out and see how we're doing.
So here you can see a part of the van floor construction. This is the plywood piece, and the joint's actually here because we did glue the floor down to the plywood. But this is the finished floor. This is the plywood. It sits on top of the foam. So now we'll have this piece of aluminum that will transfer the weight all the way down to the van floor. The original pilot hole wasn't large enough for this threaded rod to go through, so I'm just going to make that hole a little bit bigger. And now the threaded rod will fit through, and I'll be able to attach the threaded rod to the 80/20 piece and then bolt it up from the bottom. So with this piece of aluminum pushed all the way down, I'll just mark it around the outside. I'll cut it, and then we'll sand it a few times just to make it so that it's just at the surface level of the floor. So I've pushed that in there, and I just take something else to see if it rocks on it or not. That actually will be that'll be pretty good. So now I'll pull this out, I'll get some rust paint in there, clean out vacuum out the hole one more time, and then we'll move on to the other one. So I made this little threaded rod stud here. It is right now screwed in by 1 inch into this piece of aluminum. And I'm just going to flip this around and see how things are going to line up. That's going to make it a little trickier to get into place later. But it'll go like that. I can always loosen the Allen bolt that goes through the top here to make that go a little bit side to side if it needs to. Looks like I'm actually too far that way right now. We've got a little bit of adjustment that we can make. So I got this bolt in place, which means this bar is in its correct place. I'm pretty much on my tape mark there. Where that threaded rod goes through, there'll be a washer and a nut. And then I spray that all with undercoat material as well. So I think I'm going to do that again at the other one. It's going to make it a little tougher to install. I won't bore you with showing you the details of that all again. I'll just go ahead and do it.
So I got the threaded rod on both of these legs now, and I think I will be able to get that in place. This was down in the hole a second ago, but it'll be a lot more challenging to get it lined up with those 2 holes and pulled back from this notch to slide in and those other 2 bars. But it will be all locked together and will be quite strong. It's going to be a bit of an effort to put this together and then take it apart again, but I think it's probably worth the trial. So as you can see, the groove just fits over top of the lip in the shower base, and then it has to kind of wiggle in place because it's kind of catches on this corner a bit. There we go. So that will be where it sits, and then that other piece fits in this corner. So we'll try. Oh, we got to put the panel in, the other horizontal piece. Those are pretty simple. The panel just slides in the groove, passes by the B pillar, and it's fine like that. This piece should slide in as well, and it slides in underneath that plastic with a bit of effort. It should slide in under that plastic. That goes like that, and then the tough one will be sliding this piece down over top of these 2 nuts, this rabbet, and get past this little piece of plastic while lining up these 2 threaded rods. I don't think I'm going to be able to film that. Let me try.
I'm going to have to tighten those screws up a little bit first. This one's way far out here. This one's pretty far out. No. Gotta be far enough out that it goes over that plastic, but close enough that those threaded rods, oh my gosh, that's gonna be tight. At the threaded rod holes. How am I going to do that? I could probably tighten those screws up a little bit. That'll be fun. So I ended up using a pair of pliers that kind of move in the threaded rod, both of them, around a bit till they found their holes. But now you can see that is going to go down. And then as I tighten these up, they'll pull forward. Where'd my little wrench go? And that will be able to be bolted down from down below, which will tighten that up, and we should be good to go. This is the driver's seat in its fully This is the driver's seat in its fully reclined position. You can see the armrest clears this Lagun support. It's touching, but there's not any pressure there. And this post is well low, which won't interfere with any of its movement at all. So I just sat in the seat, and that's probably my comfortable driving position, and I'm 6 foot tall. So this post could live here most of its time and only have the tabletop drop in place when it's needed. Of course, it's going to swing from a position here where the tabletop will hit the back wall in that corner, or be here in a position where it's usable in the kitchen, or flipped back here, usable by this bench seat. It had always been our intention to put something in here to fill in so you didn't see the front edge of the shower pan, and we decided to use a piece of the flooring, and we liked the way that looked so much that we filled in these two areas that we hadn't planned on filling in. We were just going to have the bar and have it open. It'll still be open in the back, and there'll still be another piece of floor, this flooring material along the bottom there, but this will break up the storage area and make it look a little more finished on this side.